Hello, yes, it's Peter the Rock. It's Friday the 26th of April still. It's about 5 minutes after my previous video, and it's about 10 past 5 in the afternoon. And we can clearly see the back of Dominique here is significantly east of the canal, maybe 100 yards, maybe 150 yards. So while we weren't looking, it's moved. But the most action is happening in this little gap, this final gap between the two piers trackways. Piers, of course, with an apostrophe after the S, because what's going on here is the blue cherry picker is moving around a bit. It seems to, not sure what he's actually doing. There are people in the yellow cage which is attached to the left-hand pier. Now maybe they're prepping it for the insertion of this segment here. There's only one segment lined up, which is the one straight in front of me, just behind the spiral staircase. Now that's just been lowered down onto the trackway, which is not an encouraging sign, but I imagine they have to do some last minute measuring and adjustments, maybe even shave a bit of the concrete off. Whoa, this gap's not big enough, Bernard. All right then, I'll reduce it. I'll get out my tool, my sandpapering tool. All right then, Bernard. We just need another mill taken off. Oh yeah, very technical there, Derek. There's a buzzing noise. That's ominous. That sounds. I used to think the little looks like a little hut at the top of the crane, which is beeping away there. It's not a hut. It's a. Somebody said in the comments that it's a kind of electric circuit board control unit or something like that. In fact, on the next bit where there's a bit of a crane, you can see the equivalent on the south side of Dominique. So it's just a kind of a wall whose purpose is a bit unclear. But then that doesn't matter. I shouldn't imagine that it was a hut, really. It was just my guess. But there are lots of people milling around, as they ever do, and they're probably a bit fed up that it's 5 o'clock. Perhaps some of them want to be filmed. Perhaps some of them couldn't care less. I just don't know. Anyway, they've lowered this segment down back onto the trackway, and things have stopped happening, which is ominous. Now, why is there the yellow cage in between the two piers as trackways? I can only think that they're doing some final adjustments to the gap, ready to receive the segment. Some chugging going on, and yes, we can see the top part of Dominique, the bit of crane above it, the left-hand one, or the most easterly one, is moving at its sedate speed towards Birmingham. I did some calculations once to work out the speed of these movements and came up with something like 0.5 or 1 mile an hour, which is not very fast, but they've got to move carefully. I'd pity the people who've got to go up there and oil things, because I don't know how it's moving. It must be moving on wheels along its own railways, which are part of Dominique. Now it's coming this way vaguely towards me. Well, at a tangent still, and I don't think it's actually carrying anything, although there does seem to be something looking a bit concretey underneath it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that pier in front of me is not going to be the one to go in the gap. Maybe there's something up there underneath this eastmost crane. So we'll hang on a few moments to see where it goes. My estimate is that it'll go above the gap between the two piers, which are very nicely balanced. Obviously, with this system, they build the piers, which are a nice sort of V shape, and they slowly add to them one side at a time, so the whole thing doesn't topple, doesn't get side heavy, if that's a engineering terminology. I would love to have been part of the team that designed all this, and then of course the debrief or whatever it is, when they tell everybody how it's going to work, and people sort of nodding and saying yes, all right, and making notes. Now somewhere in this crowd of orange suited people there will be a project manager, has to be, and he or she is following their plan, which is probably a very detailed plan, more or less hour by hour, and doing what is needed to keep the whole thing on schedule. The funny thing is, from this point of view, this part of the trackway, as I call it, looks dead straight. It looks square to me. But in videos stretching back between 6 months and a year, looking down the piers, when there was a crane above each pier, there was a definite curvature to my left. So perspectives can confuse the issue. This is moving quite a long way towards its friend. Friend? Do cranes have friends? I don't know. That'd be a good title for a song. It stopped. It stopped. Companion. My crane needs companion. Slightly lonely. Spends all day atop Dominique. Answers on a postcard. Now he's moving, but he's not chugging. And beneath him, or it, or the crane part, is a sort of the yellow support mechanism, and there's no jib underneath it, so it's a bit strange, all this. My guess is that it's arrived at this point to pick this yellow strange box out of the gap, out of the way, so that the segment, which is over there in front of me, let's make that a bit bigger. Whoops. The segment, there's a good view of the segment, a side-on segment. So this is my guess. This has arrived above the gap to pluck the yellow box out of the gap to make way for the segment. And rather strange, I can hear scaffold poles being moved around, but I can't see any. And here comes a chap in a van. I don't know what he's going to provide. Bit of moral support, perhaps. I just don't know. This is I've actually I've only been videoing for YouTube for a year, more or less exactly a year, and I've got into it by watching other people's videos, and I haven't you may think, thankfully, seen any other videos like mine. Now that may be a good thing. It's probably a bad thing. I don't know, but it means that I'm different. I think I can hear two sets of chugging now. It's a bit like being in a cardiac ward. You know, the beating heart of the cranes was almost in sync. Now, the thing is, if they pluck that yellow cage out of the gap, there are people in it. So will they stay in it? What are they doing in it? Are they there for the view? Only there for the beer? Only there for the pier? The clouds are threatening. It could rain, it could snow, it could hail, the sun could break out. I'm not a weather forecaster. I'm not a lot of things really, an engineer or an expert on HS2, but my view of what's going on is possibly unique. Anyway, we've gone 10 minutes now into this. It may well be time for me to stop videoing. Oh, hello. That jib on the left